All right. I think we're good for today. Make that a little bigger. See some of y'all. Dope. So we are back doing asteroids again. What do we have here? Let's show what the game currently looks like. Oh, I was running the game overnight. That was a mistake. So this is the game as it exists today. Let's turn that audio off. Hit new game, choose the ship, shoot, particles, life system. And then I think the thing for today is if we lose our life, the ship does respawn. And if we hit new game, then we spawn a meteor right there. And we kind of have multiple ships, which is not what we want. And you can see we've got a couple of warnings here that stuff like that is happening. I can hear myself out of my own headphones over there. So, I think today we're going to focus on the new game situation. And that can build into kind of fixing this meteors always spawn at 0, 0 issue and potentially levels. If we get to it, we could do scoring, but I assume scoring is going to be next stream. And then UFOs will probably also be maybe the last thing we do because it'll hook into like the scoring system and stuff like that. So for the new game issues, our ship persists on the endgame screen. I just showed that, so we need to make sure that that doesn't happen. And then on new game, we need to clear all the meteors and reset the life count. It's telling me my bit rate is low. If anybody sees issues with the stream, let me know. I think my bit rate is high enough, but yeah, so basically we've got a number of things happening when the game ends, right? And I think the biggest thing is the ship destroyed event gets sent. So ship meteor collision, we have an event writer here. We despawn the player immediately, which I think is the right thing to do. And then we send the ship destroyed event. Ship destroyed event is listened to in the lives system. Which live system? Maybe it's not listened to in the live system. Maybe I was wrong. Where is it? It's in ship and lib. Ship is where, or lib is where we send them. Ship is where we're listening to them. So we've got life events. And we've got ship destroyed events. Okay, so ship destroyed events happens in player ship destroyed event handler. We're iterating over the ship destroyed events and then sending remove life events. So we're kind of like chaining events here, which is fine. We could, I think, we aren't filtering these ship destroyed events at all. So we could just listen to ship destroyed events in the first place. So we've got the ship bundle that we're trying to spawn back in immediately, which is the issue. So this is the bug when our game ends. It's what respawns a ship, even though we don't necessarily want one. So we're doing ship destroyed event, goes to player destroyed handler, and then for those ship destroyed events, we spawn the exact same number of life remove life events, which are handled in lives. And remove life events just handle tracking the lives in the resource. So the question becomes, how do we want to do ship spawning? So I think we want ship spawning to run after lives somehow. So maybe we put ship spawning in its own system. That would mean we need engine, fire, and command spawn in its own system that we can then run whenever the lives resource changes. So if we go to the Bevy docs, there's these conditions. Common conditions. Common conditions is a set of things that will run a system if something happens. So for example, if a resource was changed, or if a resource equals something. So our lives resource never gets below 0. So if we hit 0, then we're done, right? So we could have a system that only runs if resource is not 0 and if it's changed. And that could handle our spawning. Ooh, I made chat really, really small. I can't see chat. Give me a sec. Errors are amazing in Rust, actually. Rust errors are... The errors I was talking about earlier were not Rust errors. They were just tracing output, basically. That's a copy and paste that I did accidentally. This is just tracing output. So the same way we have info logs for like our game is starting or whatever, I also have some error logs for what these systems expect. And like, I do that for a very specific reason. Because if we didn't do that, our game would crash when that happened. Which would mean that the window that we were just seeing, we wouldn't be able to actually see the bug. So if I run here for a second, we do this, whatever, you know, crash into something. If I can fly the ship. Crash. So we run out of lives. And we have a new ship here still because we spawned one in. We have a couple of warnings that we can deal with as well. But if I hit new game here and I choose a ship, the game would crash right there if I wasn't logging these errors out. And instead of crashing, what we see is some faulty behavior. So I could do like, you know, log out in development or whatever, crash in production. But I find that when I'm building games or refactoring code or anything like that, it's much nicer to have these errors pop up because then I get to see, oh, there's a ship under the settings menu and another ship to the left of it. So that means we have like the old ship that was there when we ended the game, and we spawned a new ship. The alternative is that window just, you know, not being there, our game crashing, panicking. So I think first order of business is to make sure that the ship doesn't respawn if we hit 0 lives. So I think we're going to take all of this and put it into a new system. So function spawn ship. We're going to need some stuff in that system. I'm just going to copy, I think, a bunch of this stuff and then remove what we don't need. I put that inside of that system, didn't I? Yeah, I did. Okay, let's take this. Move it down one, I think. Yeah. And then that is good. Space sheet. Why don't we have space sheet? Because we need to do this. This is my warning setup here. This is the like warnings and errors that we were seeing before. Let's take that. We don't need the spawner. We just need the space sheet. So this is our sprite sheet that I'm pulling out from the assets database. And then ship type. That's an interesting. So if we spawn the ship when the resource hits 0, we don't have access to the ship type. And originally when I wrote this a couple weeks ago, I was using ship type as a global resource. So a user would either have chosen a ship type already, or it would be nothing. And that was really nice for being able to access the user's ship type choice anywhere. We made it local, I think in one of the streams. So what we're doing now is the user chooses, like in the UI or whatever, right? And then we're firing an event in choose ship. So we've got this choose ship event that fires whenever we click the choose ship menu. That fires off the ship type and the transform it should spawn at. And then we read that inside of our start game. So you can see this choose ship event coming in, another one of those warns. And then we just spawn in the ship at that place with that type. We could here insert the player's choice of ship as a resource. And then we could just access that from anywhere. We would just have to make sure that we had that from the user. Which I think is fine. Just thinking that through. Because the other option is we chain another event in here. So we have basically two options. We can get the ship type of the user as a resource here. There's only going to be one that the user chooses. The other option is, where were we other than this? We were in a different file. That's fine. The other option is we're sending this ship destroyed event. We could listen to ship destroyed whenever a resource changes, whenever the lives resource changes. And then we could read these ship destroyed events and make sure we spawn a ship. Let's try doing that first, I think. if we do that, we will be doing that on reaction to the lives resource changing. So I think we're good because the lives resource here only updates in one system inside of one frame. So inside of one step. So we should be fine to do that, I think. So let's do spawn ship and spawn ship. Let's do spawn ship after ship destroyed. So we need an event reader for ship destroyed, which we already have here. And then this system will run not in post update. We'll add systems here into update. And we'll run if we have to go back because I need to figure out what this is. Resource changed counter. Resource change will only return true if the given resource was just changed or added. I think that's inside of the same frame. By default, detecting changes will also trigger if the resource was just added. Interesting. This won't work here. Okay. So if we do resource changed, and we don't want counter, we want lives. And then we also want, there's an event version of this. On event. Now, this is one of the run conditions that I haven't used yet. So we generated condition satisfying closure, whatever. That's a little bit of jargon. What this means is that when there is an event, since the last time this system was called, then we'll run the system. And our event isn't my event, it is ship destroyed. Did I name this event? I should have named that event. I didn't name it event, did I? Oh well. Lives, is lives the name of our resource? Lives is the name of our resource. I'm gonna make that public and bring it in over here. We probably want to access the value too. So now we have a spawn ship after ship destroyed that runs if the lives resource has changed, and if we have ship destroyed events. I think I only want this to run if lives is not 0. Is my keyboard not working? There we go. So I only want this to run if lives is not 0. So we could do resource equals as well. Or I guess resource not equals, right? Which we can reverse. So resource equals, and then this will be lives 0. And then on the outside of this, we put not. So now we're running, hopefully, if we've done this correctly, we're running this spawn ship after ship destroyed system when lives have changed, when lives is not equal to 0, and when we have ship destroyed events to process. So basically what we're saying here is If ship was just destroyed, if lives have changed and is not 0. So actually, this will also protect us from, like, theoretically, if we added lives, like if the lives went up from 3 to 4 to 5 or whatever, this would also not fire because we wouldn't have an associated ship destroyed event to deal with. This is a lovely amount of red on that system. I think I messed this system up when I copied and pasted out of it. Let's see what Rust has to say about it. We'll just run check because I don't really want to run it. So I've got an unclosed delimiter on my ship plugin. Build is not closed. What did I do? How did I remove a semicolon? Oh, yeah. Okay, so lives doesn't implement equality, right? So what we've got to do is into lives, if we're going to do comparison between one life count and another life count, we could get out the internal value and do the equality, but instead I'm just going to derive it for lives, which means that now we can compare two live structs. So now we're down to the ship type issue. I might just hard code this for a moment and see if we can get a ship spawning and not spawning at the right times, and then we'll come back. Player ship type. We're going to make this C, or player ship type C, because I'm not choosing that when we're playing, so we'll know that something is up. So that should go, and then we'll run this. And I'm running in release mode for kicks, but... Okay, so we've got this. Let's... Oh, I didn't want to destroy that. I wanted to... Okay. So we do that, and then we're kind of getting spammed with errors. Let's fix that for a second, I think. Let's do... That's in lives. So errors here. If we go into Bevy and we look for something like once, in log, there's this thing called once. And there are a whole bunch of these here. So if we have error here, we can do error once. And if we run this again, and we make it have the same issue, this is coming from controls, so that's a different place. I don't know why I'm running in release mode. I should just be running regular. So we do this. We destroy our ship. And did I put this in another place? Okay, so I have the same log in 3 different places, which is, I don't know, that doesn't seem like best practice to me, but it's fine. At least it gives us the location of each of the logs. So now we get just one error from each of these systems because we've used error once here. And that's really nice because now our console output isn't getting spammed even though these systems are running in update. So now we have actual readable output. Now that doesn't help us a whole ton because there's no extra information above this. But we're saying only expected one player component got 0. So for all of these systems, we don't have a player in the game, and thus that cannot, let's say, function. So I think our system isn't running currently. Let's find out if it ever runs. And I guess for some of those, it actually isn't an error. It's only an error because I'm thinking of it as an error. So I don't think we ever get our system to run. Sandbox meteor destroyed event handler requires a window to spawn. Yeah, okay, that's the closing at the end. Okay, so this system doesn't seem like it's running. So maybe we got our run conditions wrong. Let's get rid of the lives 0. So I think that's the most likely. The other one that it could be is the ship destroyed event. So anytime lives changes, let's run. I think this will spawn one immediately, actually. Yeah. How do I test this in a way that is... So if we do resource change, that whenever we add lives originally in our like game startup, this system will run. I think I got either the events wrong or the lives wrong. This is running in post update, so maybe we just skip out on that for a second. Abdicate our responsibility of putting that in the right place and put it just in a place. Wait, do we have a reader here? Do we have a writer? We have a reader. So we have a reader, we have commands. I don't think I want effect query. Let's make sure that we have like the right stuff. Because we don't care about life events. Oh wait, no, this is the wrong system to be modifying. We don't care about effects here. We care about commands because we're spawning, images because we're spawning, events is something that we will need to read, and then our sprite sheet. That shouldn't have been the issue. I actually have never needed to debug the run conditions that in depth. Although it would be nice if there was some kind of like debug. So we should be getting events. not inverts the condition that we had. So the condition is resource equals 0, right? Resource equals live 0. And then resource changed. Wait, are we also listening to resource change somewhere else? The value is considered changed when it's added. That's true. The first time the condition is checked after the resource is added, it will return true. So I think that it might actually be changed. That's the issue for us. Because what I'm reading that as is even if we have that condition in multiple places, then it will only fire the first one. Yeah, it is. Okay. I feel like that's not super intuitive. But let's continue here. We get ship, and then we should get no ship. Or rather, I don't know that we removed the other one yet, but where's my VS Code going? Okay, so the issue here is that if we do the run if resource changed lives, that only fires the first time. And I bet you if we look in lives, I'm already hooked into the resource changing or something like that. It's RG lives. I guess we're not. So that's interesting. So lives is rendering in, or lives is being changed in update. We are currently running our system in post update. So it should see the resource change. I didn't think I was doing that yet. Let's see. Query playership, life container. Yeah, okay. Something worth digging into later, I think. So I'll just take a note of that. Dig into, what do we call this? Dig into why this only doesn't execute. And I think what I'll do is I'm going to make a commit here. That's a debug commit, and I'll come back to exactly this commit to deal with it later. Hey, Brad, good morning. How's it going? For now, we'll deal with the fact that this will always run whenever the lives is not 0 and we have an event. So this should work just fine. Are we still spawning in? Nope, we aren't spawning here. I feel like this is going to get us into a little bit of trouble, actually. We'll put lives here, and I'll put a debug there, which means we need to put debug on lives, which is totally fine. I usually have debug on everything, but I usually don't put it on until I actually need it. So we run, we have lives here. Lives is going to now log out for us when our ship gets destroyed. So that's lives 3, lives 2, lives 1. So it's interesting. We're getting the old lives value here. I guess that's because the remove life event has fired and the resource hasn't changed yet. So my guess, actually, now that I think about this, right? We have lives here, and the lives function is responsible for like reading these events and modifying the life count. We're running this in update, so it could run before or after anything else in update. And we don't have an event when this changes. So I think we could wrap around a frame. Whereas if we were this is going to crash originally. So let's do end resource not equal 3, maybe. Because that's just what we're starting off with. All I'm trying to do is get it past the startup. So that would work. And we do see the frame wraparound. Right? So yada, yada, yada. So you can see how the event fires, right? The lives, or rather the event fires. We fire the remove life event. The remove life event is handled after some of our player control systems. I guess these aren't errors anymore. These are warnings only. Because they don't mean anything's wrong. They mean it's wrong if there are more than one, I think. But that's not necessarily true in the future either. So yeah, this lives resource doesn't change until the next frame, which means that those systems run. Which means that we no longer have the event because we've already read the event that we're looking for here. So the question is, do we fire a spawn event from the live system? Because the live system will know if we need to spawn. Not really, though. I would love to not spawn in the live system, I think. So what if we do this instead? We've got remove life event, right? So if there's a remove life event, is that the right condition to use? No, we don't have a remove life event and a resource change at the same time. This is all like fine overall. I was just hoping we could make it easier in terms of when this should run. But we can do this. We don't actually need to do any of these run conditions because this could be system logic. So if lives dot what changed? If not changed, or lives.0 equals 0, return. So now, since this is running all the time and we're not guarding it anymore, there are resources that we are requesting that don't exist. So ship destroyed event is not something we need anymore. Image assets. Our image assets don't exist? That seems weird. Oh, run in game state playing would be the... That's the other thing we weren't doing before. That's probably why we were getting the panic in startup. That was weird. Did we spawn 2 of them immediately? Spawn after ship destroyed, res lives 3. So adding does register as a change. We could just hack this for a second. Live 0 equals 0. So let's just, for a second, we'll add the condition in our system so that lives equals 3 is our starting condition. We know that. That does seem to be spawning anyway. Oh, that's because I put this in the wrong spot. I need to get rid of that click sound. And now I wasn't paying attention when it broke. Okay. So we're going to spawn in. That's going to spawn right on the meteor, and we're going to get destroyed immediately. So we've got lives 3. Oh, this is silly. If lives equals 3, then we don't want to run this. I got my if expression wrong 3 times. Oh, you know what the issue is? Actually, we didn't get rid of the original spawn. I got my if expression wrong 4 times. Seconds since Chris has written the wrong if expression in a row. Resets to 0. Okay, so that's 1. That's 2. That's 3, and then we don't get the ship again. And then our systems just have to be resilient to the fact that we could have no player on scene, which I think is fine. I think that's totally fine. So that's in controls, right? So that's here. This isn't an error anymore unless it's greater than 1. So let's do this instead. Let's change these errors because not having a player on screen is not a failure condition. So if query.iter.count is greater than 1, and we'll change this to expected 0 or 1 player component. So either the system doesn't run if there's 0 and we don't log, or if there's greater than 1, we do log out. Because greater than 1 currently is an error for us. But 0 is not. So where do we have these other logs? Lives and controls. Lives. And controls. So here we go. We don't want that return there. We want that return there. So the system can't really do anything unless we have a player. Well, the weapon system actually. Transform query, get else. Okay, yeah, we're using the player in the weapon system. So this is the player's weapons, not just weapons in general. So we should no longer see these errors. I see the head explodey in chat, but I don't. There's a little bit of a delay between me and you, so I don't know exactly when that happened. Okay, so we're good. So now we don't have a ship. We do spawn in a new ship. We can start a new game. It's a little hectic to get there. We aren't restarting lives, so we already have 0. And if we die, we can just keep restarting, I think. Yeah. It will just keep giving us like more and more meteors. But it does work. So this is not super important anymore. So now we're spawning player type C or player ship type C. That's not what the player wants. I'm not too concerned about it at the moment, though. I think next we probably want a reset system, which probably fires whenever we hit new game. So when do we fire new game? New game is start game, right? In lib. So actually this isn't start sandbox anymore. So start game, let's see what start game does. There has to be a choose ship event. So we might have to, actually that's fine. That's all gonna be fine. And then we spawn in the ship. And we spawn in a meteor, 1 meteor every time. So this section right here, spawn meteors according to current level. We haven't done levels yet, but this is going to have to come out when we start doing levels. 4 if statements wrong. Yeah. Sometimes, you know, you just get stuck in that loop where you just write the wrong thing, and then you write the wrong thing, and then you write the wrong thing, and then you write the wrong if only programming worked by intention and not by what I actually write on screen. Okay, so we need a reset, basically. I usually write my reset as a monolithic function. And I have it execute whenever we change state. So we've got asset loading and menu, right? And then we've got choose, ship, and playing. We've got a number of resources we need to handle. I think I'm going to make it monolithic for the moment. Although we can do anything we want to when we start playing. Let's do FN reset. And this will take lives, right? What else do we need to do when we reset? We need to be able to find any meteors. So any entities with a meteor type on them. With meteor type. We need to import lives. So we need to reset the life count to 3. We need to remove any meteors that are on screen. The ship spawning is going to happen on its own. So let's do reset lives count, reset, or I guess we could just do meteors for meteor in meteors. I guess for entity, right? Commands dot entity entity dot despawn recursive. We don't have commands here, so mute commands is a commands. And then I think I'm just going to assume that we have lives for the moment. I'm going to set that to 3. This is not exactly what did I do wrong here? Cargo check. Use size cannot be dereferenced. That's fine. Oh, because it's res mute. That's why. I was like, why is that not working? That always works. Okay. So in this case, we're kind of arbitrarily setting lives to a magic number 3. I don't love that we're setting it to a magic number because we also instantiate it with the number 3 in a different location. But I'm going to leave it for now. And then for every meteor, we despawn them before we respawn all the others. So this should be able to run in the same frame as spawning any meteors because commands are deferred. So when we go to despawn here, if we despawn when we enter the game mode and we also spawn meteors in the enter game mode, schedule or whatever you want to call it, those will both happen afterwards, which means that the meteors that get despawned is operating on meteors that already exist, and the meteors that spawn in are just spawning in after that, effectively. So I think we'll be fine here running a reset game. Let's see. We're doing this on game state playing, and we can always do this too, right? So like we've got reset and we've got start here, and we can chain these. So we can make sure that start game always happens after we reset like the resources. I didn't make that pub. We'll bring that in. So if we cargo check this, this will be fine. We run this. Hopefully we don't get a crash is really what I'm looking for here. So yada, yada, yada. We've got ship. We've got the new spawning mechanism. So that's good. And then we respawn. We choose a ship. And the meteors go away. And we get new lives. So that seems fine. And then we get this nice like meteors in the background of like the kind of death screen or whatever effect, which I really, really wanted to keep. Because we saw this while we were building the game, I don't know, last week or the week before or something, and I went, that looks really cool. It persists right now across choosing your ship, which I don't know that that's the right choice. Because we could do, if that's not what we want, right? We could do, instead of on enter game state playing, we could do on enter game state menu reset. Right, so if we do this instead, I'll comment this out and make this start game. This will change when the reset happens. So effectively, we're indicating that we want to start a game when we hit new here. And then, oh no, we are terrible at the game and we drove into the meteor 3 times. So we're in the menu and it gets rid of all those meteors. And then we're just ready to go again. So I think I'm going to leave it on the game state playing, because that's just how I want it to work. We could have more states. We could do a whole bunch of stuff if we wanted it to show for the change ship menu, but not for the other menu or whatever, a whole bunch of stuff we could do. But I'm choosing this because I like having the meteors around. So we have ship spawning and we have game resetting. We have a bug where our current ship, the ship that spawns, is not the ship the user chose. So how do we want to handle that? We could make that global, right? We could make that a resource. So at some point you're going to choose your ship, right? This choose ship event or whatever. So user chooses their ship right here. And then we immediately, or not immediately, it's a little bit deferred. So when we change states, it's worth noting, changing states happens in a specific system inside of Bevy. So I don't know that I'll be able to type the name of this system offhand, now that I think about it. I don't want any of the run conditions. I think it's apply state transition. So this system is naturally running at some point in like Bevy's regular default plugins, whatever, right? This just happens for you. You can put this wherever you want. So like we could force state transitions to like occur after a certain system at any given point. All we would need to do is take this system and put it somewhere in our game and define when it runs. But by default, this runs, I think, early. Does it say which schedule it's in here? I wouldn't expect it to because it's a little weird to like do that. But I think it's in like first or something. So we've got the main schedule. There it is, state transition. So we've got these startup time periods, we'll call them. They're schedules, but then we've got first, pre-update, state transition, any fixed schedule loops, and then update, post-update, and last. So state transition is when these state transitions happen, and it happens according to effectively this system running. All that to say, next state.set doesn't immediately change the state. It happens sort of like somewhat later. So we choose the ship event, and then at some point in the future, the state will transition. When we send this choose ship event, right, we are handling that in lib, I think. Actually, now that I think about it, I think that's the trigger for start game, right? Yeah. So if that's the trigger for start game, we could have a global resource, because this is only going to be a single player game. We could have a global resource that we insert that's the player ship type choice. And then we could set that resource here. And that would allow us to just access that resource whenever we want from any system, whenever our game is running. I think that's what we want to do, because it is kind of just like a choice the user made in the past. So let's do that. Let's do insert resource, player ship type. Let's make it player ship type B, so that's defined in this file, right? Yeah, player ship type B. Oh, I guess the default needs to be set. So I'm doing an insert resource here. I thought that should work. Oh, I didn't derive resource on it. So one thing you can do is derive resource and component on any struct. So then you could use it as a component and you can use it as a resource. So in this case, we're starting the resource off with B, which is the player ship type choice. That just happens to be whatever we make it. In this case, it's B. If we did a init resource, we could use the default. And then that would let us in lib, in start game, we'll have player ship type choice. I know that's pretty long. Res mute, player ship type. And then if we have an event, we immediately know the ship type. So we just set it. I think we need to clone this. What is player ship type? I thought ship type was, oh, ship type's a reference. So this needs to be dereferenced, which means it's going to need to be cloned, if I remember correctly, because the player ship type needs to be the actual value. So let's do a check here. Cannot be dereferenced, fine. If we're cloning, we're going to clone a reference there. Oh, I didn't make it mutable either. So second time today I've forgotten to make that mutable. So I'm cloning here because I believe that we need to. So we have this resource. What are we doing with this ship type currently? We are setting it as a component on the player. I think that we still want it to be a component on the player itself. So we kind of want it to be in both locations. We'll use the resource for spawning, and we'll use the component for like sprite selection for the player. Or if we ever need to like have a specific collider for a specific ship, it's useful to have that as a component. So kind of like the resource is the player's overriding choice if we need to create a new one, and the component is what it actually is when it's spawned into the world, in this case. So all that to say, when we spawn the ship here in spawn ship after ship destroyed, we'll do player ship type, res, player ship type. And when we spawn, we get rid of this. And these three become player ship type. So now when we run the game, we can play the game, we can choose this ship, ship still works. When we spawn in, we get the right ship spawning in from our system. Yada, yada, yada. If we hit new game, I pick this one over here. It also spawns in correctly. The meteors are still spawning at 0, so if I choose the middle one, we just die. But you can see if you saw it fast enough that it actually did spawn the right ship. So we've got our ship respawning working. We've got new game working. The meteor needs to not spawn at 0. Actually, I'm just catching how... Is the visual really bad? I did make some changes. Not in the game, but in the stream. Oh wow, there's quite a bit of delay too. Interesting. I don't know if that's just the view they're giving me or not, but okay. So we've got ships. We've got our respawn. We've got new game. Meteor still spawn at 0, so we need to randomize that a little bit. We need to do levels at some point. So where are we in our kind of issue tracker here? So on game over screen, ship persists and should not persist. That is true. We've done both of these things. Done on stream today. Close with comment. And then we've got the meteors and the levels. So levels are going to be when there's no more meteors left on screen. Then we're going to need to respawn. How do you recommend designing levels using Bevy? I'm trying to make an FPS and finding it very difficult to construct a proper level with colliders and all the components I need. An FPS, I assume that's 3D, right? So I don't know that there is a strong answer in 3D right now. One of the best workflows I've seen is using Blender to construct levels and bring those in. There's a plugin called, what is it? Blender Bevy Components Workflow. So there's this plugin. And this plugin is very, very, very exciting because it does a bunch of stuff where you can basically go into Blender, use Blender as your level editor, and then take that into Bevy, apply components in Blender, and then in Bevy do different things like add colliders and whatnot. If I was doing a 3D FPS, this is probably what I would do. As of today, anyway. So yeah, your question is about designing levels. I assume that means like constructing levels. I would use Blender as a level editor. The thing that I use for 2D levels for like tile sheets and stuff is currently LDGK. Yeah, let me know how you get on with it too, if you do decide to use it. I know there is a Bevy scene format and stuff like that, and Bevy does a lot of reflection. I don't know that the current scene format is like there's no visual editor is kind of what I'm getting at. So we kind of have to fill that in. And Blender is a really solid 3D program, which turns out really well. So there's LDGK. There's a couple of other 2D tile editors. There's Bevy ECS Tile Map, which you can use to like take those levels and pull them in. There's higher level tooling like Bevy ECS LDGK, which is even higher level and allows you to spawn in entities that you're designing. Same way that Bevy Blender Components workflow lets you do it inside of Blender. Bevy ECS LDGK allows you to do like the addition of components and stuff inside of LDTK. It's highly impractical to design levels using code and simple XYZ coordinates. Yes, that I can agree with for a major game. I think it's fine for small games, for maybe 2D puzzle games, for game jams, anything that you can like define your own serializable format for. But the bigger things get, the harder that is, which I totally agree with. And for an FPS, I think I would have to use Blender. I don't think that I could do that manually without seeing it. Okay, so meteors shouldn't spawn at 0, and they should be a little bit randomized, right? And then new ship spawns should wait for clear areas. So let's get this in, git commit ship respawn and new games working. I'll push that up. So I do want to come back at some point and revisit this like lives stuff. Maybe I'll make an issue for that. I think it's just it's fine, right? Just to be clear, like it works. It is fine. It does what we need it to do. I am just not happy with it from like a pedagogical perspective. Where was that? That was in ship RS 180. So I would love these to be run conditions. Specifically the change detection in ship.rs. Can we make this a set of run conditions instead? So we'll label that an enhancement because it's not technically a bug since everything works correctly. It's just kind of a piece of code that I wish was written differently. And while it is super important to like know that you can do change detection like is changed here, and you can do whatever tests you want to make sure the system runs or doesn't run or whatever, I feel like it would still be nice if these were run condition based, because I would love to not have this sitting at the top of my system. Okay, so meteors and levels. Meteor randomness. We could use the rand crate for that. Let's do that first, I suppose. So actually, I'm 50-50 on it, but let's do it that way. So we have a to-do in here somewhere for spawning these meteors. And what we want this to do is actually spawn it not where the ships are spawned, but somewhere else. Because it would be nice if our ship didn't die immediately. So I don't know if we pulled Rand in yet. Yeah, we did pull Rand in. Cool. So I think let mute RNG equals thread RNG. And I'll qualify this. And then I feel like I want to do a little bit of like a box in the center of the screen that can't spawn meteors. So let's just start with random. Let's do RNG. I think it's gen F32, and we'll multiply this. I want to multiply that by the screen height. This is dot gen, and this is it gen or is it gen range? Gen. I think gen is fine. And this is inferring the type, so we don't actually need to do anything else. The one thing we do need to do is, do we have the window here? We don't have the window here. We want to kind of place it on the window somewhere. Oop, that's not what I wanted to do. Window. We don't have window in this file. Where do we have window? Oop, not that. Gen range or multiple gen by whatever you want the range to be. Yes. So I do need to keep the Z index. The Z index does need to be static because we don't want it to be like above or below random stuff, I guess. Because I guess it doesn't matter because everything collides anything and nothing actually overlaps, but it makes more sense in my mind to keep that static. But yeah, we could. Bevy is also adding really great random number generation for various types all the time. So if we wanted to do something a little bit more fancy, we could. RG, that's not what I want. RG window in source. So this is in movement. Let's go fetch the movement code. Window. So I am going to take these and we're going to go back into lib. And I'm just going to replace that with this. primary window does need to become in. So now we have a window, we have width and height. No primary window. Can't start game. So we have width and height. Width and height are over 2. I guess we could gen range, but I think we need to do this. Let's pull this all the way down here. So we've got window resolution width and window resolution height. And then I think we're just going to subtract each of these. And this, I do want it to be an F32, which I don't think it's inferring anymore due to reasons. And that should give us a meteor spawn somewhere on screen. So we're getting a random number from 0 to 1. We're multiplying it by the window resolution. And then we're subtracting half of the window resolution because the 0, 0 point is right in the center of the screen. So if I do this, it spawns down there. These, I think, might have already been spawning like that. So we do a new game, and now it spawns up there. So it always spawns in a different location now. Now we're doing 0 protection against like it spawning directly on the ship. So it's like theoretically possible for this meteor to spawn here and then immediately lose a life. That would be really bad gameplay experience. It wouldn't be my favorite thing to do or to have happen. But it's not really an issue right now. So I think I'm just going to ignore it. We do want to deal with that at some point, though. You can also do gen range and do like negative screen width over 2 ... Yeah. Wait, multiplying it. Oh, do gen range with that range. Yeah. We could definitely do that. I guess that does make a little bit more sense, but minus width. It's a little bit awkward. So what is that? Negative width and width? And then gen range, negative height, and height. Because those are already over 2. What's the end goal with this project? This is asteroids. That's it. End goal is asteroids. We've got about maybe one more stream worth of like work to do on it. So yeah, this seems to be working. Same computation. I do like the gen range with the negative width and height better because it kind of gives a little bit better of a, like if we name the width and the height, maybe we name this something else like half width, half height or something, or half extents or something. But I do like the range better. That is a good suggestion. But yeah, this is just asteroids. We are going to probably spend one more stream on it. we need to do spawning or scoring and levels. So, and then UFOs. So scoring levels and UFOs. I think levels are pretty much meteor should spawn not at 0, 0 and randomized. That's checked. New ship spawns should wait for clear area. That is not. So we'll leave that. Randomize initial meteor spawn. Oh, 3 M's and commit. Cool. So git push. And then I might take this and turn it into a workshop. I'll need to do some refactoring because coding on stream is not necessarily the, let's say, the best way to think through architecture. Because some of my brain is always like focused on speaking out loud all the time, looking at chat, responding to things and whatnot. But I think overall this is generally pretty solid, like the approaches taken here. There's a couple of things that I would like to clean up. Like I would like to not have random systems being added in main. I think controls we split up already. But like controls has laser movement in it. And that needs to get moved out to like a lasers file or something like that. So yeah, there's a couple of things that I would like to clean up before it was, you know, pedagogically sound, if that makes sense. But adding shaders, scanline shader or CRT shader. I don't know that that would be that hard. You're talking about like a post-process shader, right? I don't think that would be that hard, actually. I think coming up with the shader to apply is probably the hardest part. But if you're looking for a post-processing example, oh, I'm not going to remember which folder this is in. There we go, post-processing. There's this post-processing example in the Bevy examples. And it goes through adding everything that you need to add to be able to do something like post-processing. So in this, actually, this isn't the way I did it last time I did it, I don't think. Now that I think about it. This is like true post-processing. This is as part of the render graph post-processing. The last time I did it was actually really, really, really silly. I took the 3D scene and I put that into a 2D texture that was stretched across the screen. And then I applied a shader to that 2D texture. So maybe I'll dig into this. I do have a different demo that I'm planning on uploading. I don't remember what I called it, is the problem for sure. Pixelated something or other. Maybe it's not in that. I have so many repos. Pix. Where did I put that? This is all YouTube stuff. Builder pattern, Blue Sky API, compute shader, Procreate Dreams. We should get back to doing some of that at some point. Yada, 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 space golf. Ooh, Nanu examples. We're going to be able to update that at some point. Nanu is building on top of Bevy. If you're a fan of This Week in Bevy, this week is huge for the Nanu on Bevy rewrite, which I'm super excited about. Infinite Pong, Ferrisbot, yada, yada, yada. Sometimes I feel like I have too many repos. I didn't put this in my temp folder, did I? Anyway, I have a different example that I'm going to upload that is post-processing stuff that I can't remember what I called. I have no idea what I called it. I have no idea where I put it on my computer, which is strange for me. Usually everything is in one place, which is why I'm taking a second to look for it. I know this isn't the most exciting stream content. The Bevy VFX bag is outdated. I don't know that I would agree with that. It's definitely earlier in life cycle for game engines compared to some other engines. So like you don't have a node editor or whatnot. But working with like shaders and stuff is actually really nice in Bevy. Like if you want to do something super custom, you can in Bevy, and I don't know that that's true in all other systems. So much stuff. All right, yeah, I'm not going to find it in there. Parking lot of entities is a game. Tracks socials, embedded microbits. Anyway, I meant to upload that today anyway. I'll find it and upload it. I told somebody else I was going to upload it today. But yeah, anyway, post-processing. The last time I did post-processing, I basically did a camera effect. I rendered the 3D scene to a texture, and then put that texture on a quad and put the shader on the quad. Is Bevy Rapier or Bevy XPBD preferred for 3D physics? It depends on what you're doing. I think for what you're doing, probably Bevy XPBD. So for first-person shooter kind of stuff. There's nothing inherently wrong with either choice. The big difference is that Bevy Rapier is an integration with Rapier, which is a third-party like physics system. What I mean when I say that is that it's separate, right? It's not integrated with Bevy's ECS. It's not integrated with Bevy's worlds. So there's like a physics world in Rapier, and then there's the Bevy world, and they're different, and they kind of have to integrate at an API boundary. Bevy XPBD, the really nice thing about it, or the really promising thing about it, is that it's integrated into Bevy. It's Bevy first. It's really only meant to be used with Bevy at the current moment, which means that you get a lot of like ECS isms. You get to query for components, and you get to do all these things that are otherwise a little bit kind of tougher to do with Rapier. That said, Bevy or Rapier is undergoing a bit of a rewrite right now. So that'll happen sometime soon. Basically, the issue is, if I remember correctly, XPBD is actually copyrighted by NVIDIA or something like that. So they need to change the name of the crate. And they're actually moving towards a slightly different solver. This shouldn't have much user space effect. Like if you start using Bevy XPBD 3D, it doesn't look like it's going to be a huge change when that happens, but it is happening. So that's the one versus the other at the current moment. How do I have so many projects? Each Bevy project takes a lot of space. I don't think so. How do I tell? I don't really want to clear. I guess like we work on asteroids quite a bit, so theoretically asteroids should be one of the bigger ones. $384 bytes doesn't sound right. The other thing is that this computer has a terabyte of storage on it. So like, yeah, I guess asteroids, because we work on it so much, we work on it every week. I do a whole ton of builds in here, and I haven't cleaned it since we started, like a month ago. It's about 13 gigs, which all in all, it isn't that big in my mind. du-sh. Oh, right. I think I have Dust installed. That still doesn't. Oh yeah, there we go. 12 gigs. So if I go backwards and I do Dust, that whole directory is 41 gigs total, and it's at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I don't know, something like that. 8. Like Bevy projects. The whole GitHub repo, all of them together, is 80 gigs. So how many are there? 102 repos, and it's 80 gigs total. That doesn't feel like a lot to me. Like I get, like it's a lot of repos and stuff. It's a lot of stuff. But unless you're like actively working on stuff, and this target directory is really just the issue, and I could like have a centralized target directory and, you know, make that even smaller. I don't, because I do so much like streaming and videos and stuff like that. So I don't want my setup to be different than what most people are working with, if that makes sense. Like when somebody asks a question on stream, I don't want my answer to be like, oh, well, if you download Nix OS and then use Nix package and then upload that to whatever, and, you know, not that there's anything wrong with like Nix or whatever. I just want my setup to be as close to what, you know, first timers or beginners or the majority of people are doing, rather than some really specialized setup. But yeah, 80 gigs overall feels pretty lightweight. Like that's what is that, half of Call of Duty? So like, I don't know. I don't think it's that big. I could understand how you think it's big if you have like a 100 and whatever gig hard drive. Or like something really tiny. You're working with like extreme space requirements, but I'm definitely not. This is like a 1 or 2 terabyte hard drive computer. Where were we? What were we doing? Levels? Should we do levels? How do levels work in Asteroids? I think the number of meteors just goes up, right? Oh, there's also hyperspace, which we didn't implement. 256 gig SSD. Yeah, 256 is like really small though, right? Like 256, I'm pretty sure you can get that for pretty cheap on like a USB thumb drive these days. That's not to say like everybody needs to have a massive amount of space or whatever, but in the grand scheme of things, like 256 gigs is just not a lot of data anymore. It used to be quite a bit. But like even Apple computers are shipping with like 8-10 terabytes in a laptop these days. I don't go that high because I don't need it, but like I don't even know if you can get a 256 like MacBook Pro. I think it might start at 512. Actually, I'm curious about that. Yada yada yada. Bye. I don't know. Which one do we do? Yeah, these start at 512. So 256 is less than the base MacBook Pro model will let you buy. Not to say that like you need to upgrade or anything, but just to put it into context, that 256 just not that much storage anymore. Your targeter is 32 gigs and you cleaned it yesterday, but you build multiple separate profiles regularly. Do you have one targeter, Kevin, or is that just like a targeter for a single project? You can definitely clean out the targeter more often and whatnot. I don't feel that pain point. Like hard disk space or like SSD space or NVMe space or whatever you want to call it. There's just so much of it to have these days. Um, when was the last time you cleared it? If that's for a single project. And multiple separate profiles will definitely boost it. Like if you're building for, you know, Mac and Windows and I don't know, Linux and microbits or something, I don't know. Or Wasm and whatnot. Okay. So we need to figure out how levels work. Extra life per 10,000 points. So we haven't built in like positive life systems yet. We're probably not going to match this scoring exactly because it doesn't look like there actually is an exact explanation of the scoring. We might be able to find one, but I don't know that it's really that important. Just so that we have some score when you destroy a meteor. Yeah, Linux, Wasm, debug, release. Yeah, for sure. The machine turns over at 99,990 points. That's funny. It's always wild to see like how constricted these games were back when they were originally created. Uh, Object wrap around, player shoots asteroid, they build it smaller. Player score increases the angle range of shots from the yada yada. So the UFO gets better over time. This doesn't actually tell us anything about the levels. Yada yada yada. Ports reception, world records, clones. Don't want a guide or a walkthrough. I want to like not have ads all over my screen is what I want. So gameplay. I actually don't see anything that confirms that the number of asteroids goes up. I thought that was true, but I might have to just watch some asteroids gameplay. and figure it out. The game slows down as the player gains 50 to 100 lives due to a programming error. The player can lose the game after more than 250 lives are collected. That's hilarious. Don't do too well. Okay, so I'm gonna end up having to look up like levels for asteroids, like how they're supposed to work, if that makes sense. I think that we could start by just doing 1 meteor levels, and then we can deal with the meteor spawning later. So this will happen every time the level starts, not just when the game starts. Which start game probably just increments the level counter then. Like you start at level 1. We probably keep level in a struct and a resource. You choose your ship. The level is probably set to, 1 or whatever when the game resets. Your ship spawns in. It is level 1. We're doing the meteor spawning after we spawn in. So both of these spawns happen in a deferred manner, right? So they happen like after our systems run. So we're effectively spawning these at the same time later. So if we have a resource that's a level, and that level is inserted, then whenever that level changes, I think we want to recenter the player, right? Do we recenter the player? I think we want to recenter the player. And we also want to spawn in some new meteors. So every time there are no more meteors on screen, then the level is over. The question is that a system that we run constantly? So instead of doing like level based stuff right now, or rather, let's start a levels file, right? Pubmod levels. And then we create the levels file and we bring in Bevy because we always bring in Bevy. And then we have probably the levels plugin, right? Same thing as other stuff. Bring in some random imports as well. Why not? Life plugin. This will be levels plugin. This is not doing anything yet. I guess we just start with level, right? And level starts with, I don't know, we'll start with 0. We don't have any systems yet. Let's leave the update one. Let's call this level completion and it'll run in game state playing. So then we need a resource that is called level that contains a usize. And we need a system that's called level completion that queries for meteors, entity with meteor type, and if meteors dot length is length what we have here. I guess we iter dot length. If there's nothing, let's do an info once level complete. So let's bring in meteor type here. This is adding, we'll add the levels plugin. Made that public, perfect. In main, I guess. Levels plugin. I do actually think plugins are extremely strong as a like code organization mechanism inside of Bevy. Like it's not that plugins need to be third party, super complicated like physics plugins or whatever. I think simple things like this also plugins are very valid. It's kind of like one step up from having separate files because you can kind of constrain all the logic around a specific thing in a specific place and then kind of work your tree down, which is nice. Okay, so this should be running all the time. I think it only runs in game state playing. Oh, that is a weird place for that to go. Yada, yada, yada. Okay, so we are playing. There is a meteor. We need to, oh, you know what? Actually, this is never going to happen. It's never going to happen because we can, the way we're spawning meteors. Okay, so in meteors, when there's a meteor that is destroyed, meteor destroyed event handler, right? We are currently spawning an effect, and for a meteor destroyed, we're spawning that effect. For each destroyed type, we're spawning more meteors, but if it's small, we actually don't want to. So let's do this. We'll say it's going to be all the way over there. The other thing is that I've made it easier to play the game if you have a smaller screen, or I guess harder to play the game. Okay, so that gave us our level complete. Here we can see a bunch of things happening. There's some like duplicate logic in our meteor despawning, which is totally fine because actually all we're doing there is taking meteors out of the game. And if we try to take a meteor out of the game twice, really that's only an issue because we tried to do it a second time. It doesn't actually affect anything. But you can see we got level complete because we had no more meteors on the screen. And it only ran once because we had the info once. So I'm going to take that logic out. Small meteors don't propagate more meteors. So this works. I don't think there's any kind of run condition that could trigger for that. I don't think we have like a query run condition, if that makes sense. Common conditions. Any with component. Any component removed in state, not on event. Resource changes. Yeah. So there's nothing we can do in kind of like run conditions to stop this from running. So this will just run right now. We're having it run in the update system or in the update schedule. So it runs all the time, every frame. We're running only when we're playing because the only time you can complete a level is if you're playing the game. And then this happens. And my thought process here is we have effectively a loop that is happening a bunch of times, right? So we're checking to make sure that there are 0 meteors. When there are 0 meteors, we want something to happen. But we really only want that thing to happen once. So we have options, I think. I don't think we have event once. So event writer. I've got send, send batch, and send default. So send will send an event, but we don't have any kind of like send once reset kind of behavior. So we could do current level, res level, right? Local level is local state. So we're going to do a local level. And this is going to initialize to 0, I think. Which is a little bit awkward. I actually don't know if there's a way to do a default on a local. Not a default, actually. There is a way to do defaults. I want to do like from world on a local. So that instead of, there it is. It is from world. Okay. So do we want that to be level then? I guess this can be next level, right? And this can be local level. So if next level isn't equal to local level, and meteors.iter.length, we'll call this existing meteors, right? Let existing meteors equal this length. Well, let's call this number of existing meteors. Num existing meteors. So if the levels are different and number of existing meteors is greater than 0, then we're going to have to do some stuff. I'm going to have to think through this a little bit, I think. If meteor's length equals 0 and next level and local level are the same, which means there's 0 meteors and we are on the level that we thought we were on. Like we haven't changed levels yet. This is starting to feel like I have a little bit too much to think about in this system. What's another way we can do this? I think there's another way we can handle this. So instead of having this system, the meteors are going to get destroyed, right? So we've got a destroyed event handler happening here. And we have the number of meteors that are about to be destroyed alongside the number of meteors that actually exist, right? Although we aren't querying for that right now. So let's query for meteors. This will be entity with meteor type. And I think, actually, we don't need width and height here anymore, do we? We don't even need window here anymore. That's wonderful. Actually, now that I think about it, let's get rid of windows. That's awesome. I love that. Okay, meteors and events. If events dot length equals meteors dot iter dot length, we are going to despawn all available meteors. So our intent here is to despawn everything. I don't know that this is actually true now that I think about it, though, because we could have different sizes of meteor, right? So all of those meteors need to be accounted for. So there's two options here that I can think of. There's kind of two paths that I'm thinking about going down. One is to go back to what we were doing, and one is if we track whether we have a big or a medium meteor spawn, like hit, right? If we have not hit any of these and the lengths are equal, then everything we hit was small, right? So we could have a Boolean flag in here, or keep some state, or do some checks or whatever. Then when we're done saying that we're going to despawn stuff, we could fire an event that the level was completed. The other place we can fire an event that the level was completed is by doing this query to see if the query is 0. So is there a situation in which we can reliably detect this completion? I think that we can just start doing it this way. And we'll deal with it. So in this case, we have level 0. It's annoying me a little bit that this level starts at 0. So maybe what we do is Let's just do default here. So level's going to start at 0. We could also impl default and say level starts at 1. Impl default for level. And then this is 1. So we always start at level 1 instead of level 0. It's kind of a toss-up. Doing comparison like this requires equality, so partial eq and eq. Is that true? I think we need compare our ordering here too. Cannot be applied to local and res. So these need to be like their values to be compared. Hey Miner, how's it going? So if we have no meteors left and we're on the level that we think we are, then we want to fire this level complete once. So like we could do something really silly like this, right? And this will default to false. Sent level completion event equals true, right? And then we send here. We don't have our event yet. So we're going to do like events.send level complete. What did I do wrong here? I did cannot borrow is mutable because this needs to be mute. Local level will also need to be mute at some point. Although we aren't doing it right now, so we're going to get a little warning there. Num existing meteors is what we're calling this. I guess does this have is empty on it? It does. Let's do that. That's way better. I always make that kind of like coding. It's not a mistake per se, but it's kind of like a non-idiomatic way to do things. So if we can check if this query is empty, that is better than checking if the length is greater than 0. But I always forget about is empty, and I always do a greater than 0 check or a 0 check. I just haven't gotten out of the habit of it yet. So level completion, when we don't query any entities and the levels are the same, so our level and the level that we think we're on, we want to complete the level. So let's change this to info. Send level complete event equals true. So we'll do end. I don't know that I want to do this. You know, like bang deref send level complete event feels weird. So I'm gonna keep it like this and do the comparison explicitly. I like keeping the number of symbols in a row a little bit lower. So if we detect that there are no more meteors and we're on the level that we think we are, and we haven't sent the level complete event yet, then we send the level complete event. So this should run once if we've written this logic correctly. Which we have not. We are still running this. Cool. Oh. Let's do a little bit more here. Let's do warn level completion. Did I try Bevy Reactor? I have not tried Bevy Reactor yet. I haven't really had a strong reason to try Bevy Reactor yet. Are you liking it? Have you been using it? I know you said that Bevy Reactor was great on the last, this week in Bevy, I think it was the video. Still cooking, but it makes life easier. Cool. I know there's like the 3 posts that go in depth, which is really cool. Yeah, I don't know. I may or may not use it. There's also a difference between the stuff that I use in my personal projects and the stuff that I use if I'm building something that can eventually go into a workshop. If I'm doing something that can turn into a workshop, I have to think a lot more about, is this crate going to be maintained? Is it worth teaching this crate? If I teach this crate, am I not teaching something about how Bevy works? So I did that in the past with some UI stuff, and I decided to go back to Bevy UI when it grew enough support. Like obviously there are third-party crates that are extremely useful for various reasons. Things like, Bevy ECS tile map and whatnot. But the point of the workshops is also to teach people how things work. So there's a trade-off between like teaching people how Bevy works and teaching people how a third-party crate has decided to do things. So for this project, I'm not going to use Bevy Reactor. I could use Bevy Reactor in something else. So level completion, this will just keep running and running and running. These should be the same. Oh, we're inserting 0 here, aren't we? If I remember correctly. Yeah, let's init resource here. So that should be actually the issue, now that I think about it. It's more like the idea of reactivity itself. Yeah, I mean, I do a lot of like signal-based reactive stuff with Leptos, for example. So I'm not terribly unfamiliar with that idea. So we get level complete just to, like, this works. This detection works, and it fires once, and then it's good. The one thing that I wanted to mention about reactivity, observers, pull requests, generalized ECS reactivity with observers is the name of the PR. So I've been tracking this PR for quite a while. Or not, I guess not quite a while. It hasn't been around that long. But this is what I'm looking at when I think about how do I want to observe, not observers specifically, but just like reactivity in general. I'm looking for how Bevy is going to implement it in core rather than bringing on a third-party plugin. And I don't know if or when this PR is going to merge, because they're still working on it. Oh, they added it to the 0.14 milestone. That's exciting. Okay, so it looks like this is coming in the next version. So I'm not too excited to get invested in third-party reactivity plugins at the moment. That's not to say it's not good, right? Like Bevy Reactor is available now. This is coming in 0.14. But just where I'm sitting on things currently for myself. Will the code be available on GitHub? It is already available on GitHub. I push stuff up during the stream. So it'll be Rust Adventures / Asteroids. I can probably just drop that link in chat, actually. So the code is open source. The code is available. If you see something and you're like, hey, I would be interested in trying to do it a different way or something like that, definitely go take the code, play around with it, clone it, whatever. Everything you see on stream is available. Okay, so we have detected a state in which we can fire a single event. That event is probably going to be a level complete event. A level complete event will need to do something. So let's create a new event, derive event struct level complete. I don't think we need to stick any data into this because the level will be whatever it currently is when this comes in. So if we have a function that is like on level complete, right? And we get events, which will need to be mutable, which is an event reader for level complete events. I feel like these should all have events after them, like level complete event. I don't know. What do y'all think? Like, should events have the word event after them, or should they not? I go back and forth on it myself. So let's do events dot is empty. So if they're not empty, then events dot clear, I think is the function we want to call. EV, you prefer a prefix, EV underscore? Well, you can't do EV underscore for structs, like for the struct name itself. As a variable name, sure, I could see that. So if events isn't empty, then we're going to clear the events because we're processing them here. And then we're going to need the resource, right? So mute current level. It's going to be a res mute level. And then current level plus equals 1. I think I want to do deref on this. Deref and deref mute, which why would that need to be manual? Oh, that must be Argus fighting me again. Okay, so current level plus equals 1. If you're not familiar with what I just did there, Bevy provides a deref and a deref mute derive for structs. Oh, that's the wrong thing to put that on, actually, now that I think about it. Level complete event. I need it on level. There we go. So what is the current issue? Binary assignment cannot be applied to res mute level. Did I not mark it as mutable? I did mark it as mutable. Oh, levels can't be added. That makes sense. We could do level addition. Or we could double dereference. Unfortunately, the deref trait doesn't actually gain us much in that scenario. So if I take these off, I think we still have to do the same dereference there. Or it might actually gain us one. Nice. It does work in that scenario. So we get a little bit of symbol soup, but that's fine. So on level complete, if the events aren't empty, then we're going to clear the events. We're going to increase the level by 1. And then we have an option for what to do. So one thing is that in level completion, that resource, so the next level will go up, right? And we do need to handle that. Double deref is the root of all evil, I guess, if you have to deal with null pointers. Luckily we don't. Sometimes on stream also I just do things in kind of a quicker way. So like we could do this instead. And then I don't think we actually need this. So this would also work if you would prefer to not have double deref. Which, you know, I know people don't like .0, but shrug. I don't know that I really care that much. I am not as invested in that programming opinion as other people are. So we're going to have a next level. Our local level is going to be different here. I guess that's kind of our indication that we need to reset, right? So if next level is not equal current level, then local level right? Does it still work incrementing outside of the if block? What do you mean by incrementing outside of the if block? With respect to the increment specifically. Like if we took this outside of the if block, right? And we did it up here or whatever, that works in terms of like the code works for sure. But we only want this to happen if there is an event for the level complete events. That's why it's in the if block. But the incrementing itself works regardless. Like there's the if block isn't germane to the actual increment for the level here. So let's run this all the time currently. Let's chain these, why not? So on level complete changes the level, then our level complete here that sends the level completion events needs to reset its conception of what level it's actually dealing with. And our sent will go to false. Now, the interesting thing here is we're trying to do meteor detection. So it immediately detects that there's no meteors if we haven't spawned any. So if next level is not equal to that and meteors is not empty, then we do our reset. Otherwise, we do this other check. And it feels a little awkward. Like, I feel like this logic could be cleaned up, but I believe that that will work for us for now. So on level complete, we increment the level. What else do we need to do? We kind of need to start the game again, right? But we need to do it in a slightly different way. So right now, when we start the game, we are choosing what ship the player has, which we set in that resource, and then we spawn the ship in. We also spawn in a meteor. So let's do something where we spawn in meteors when there's new levels, I guess. So one thing that's really interesting is that we have kind of like a start game scenario, right? And then we also have like a level start. So the interaction between those two things overlaps quite a bit in a lot of games I've found. So like when a level starts, you usually want to do many of the same things that you want to do when you start a the whole game. So what I'll probably do is at some point come back and refactor this a little bit, because I think that all we'll actually need to do is level starts. But for the moment, we can actually just do this in here if we wanted to. Just to get it to work for the first time. And then after it works for the first time, then we can clean it up. Is that a can't use that inside of the other thing? Meteor bundle. Commands is something we need. Mute commands. Commands. Primary window needs to come in. Gen range. Did we not bring in rand RNG? We need to bring in rand RNG. Space sheet. Something we need. That's the other thing we can do too. We could, instead of having all these bundles, we could have custom commands for spawning meteors and stuff. And then we wouldn't need to pass space sheet around, because we would just be able to get it inside of that command, which I actually like quite a bit as a like architectural choice. So let's grab images and sheets and stick this in for now. And then this is the level spawn, so we can get rid of that comment. We'll leave that comment and we'll say for index in, what do we have here? Level, current level. We're going to spawn in the number of meteors that it is for this level. So if we're on level 1, we get 1 meteor. If we're on level 2, we get 2 meteors, 3 is 3, and so on and so forth. We actually don't care about this index because we are randomizing. And I think that's okay. So let's get a run in here. Ship it now, fix it later, unless it's microtransactions. I am not planning on doing asteroid microtransactions. Okay, so we have a panic. On level complete resource doesn't exist. You know what I didn't do? I didn't add in the event. Add event, what did we call it? Level completion? Level complete event. So if your system tries to access something that doesn't exist or isn't registered, it will not be able to run. So if we do this and I cheese it a little bit and I don't die, that would be cool. The level is complete. I don't think we had our event reader spawn though. So level completion, right? We got some locals. We've got the meteor. Oh, you know what we didn't do? We didn't actually send the event. That is really important. If you have an event system and you intend to listen to events that you've sent, you do actually have to send the event. That is how that works. Why is level complete event? You cannot listen to events that do not exist. That is absolutely true. Okay, let's get this going. Yay, and then we've got 2 meteors. Hopefully we'll get a 3rd meteor here. 3 meteors. We like actually have asteroids now. Okay. 4 meteors. All right, so this is like actually working now. Like actually working. I think life system should still work, right? Like yada yada yada. Crash, crash, crash. We create a new game, and then we get 1 meteor. And that is the bug that I wanted to see. That is our reset doesn't reset. So when there's a new level, or when we spawn a new game, we do need to reset the level count. Right, so mute, level, res mute, level. That's not what I want. I want to bring that in from... Oh, I didn't make it public. We have a game. You can listen to non-existent events. You probably just won't hear anything. I feel like there's a joke about staring into the void there. So we have level here. So the only reason we're making this public is to reset it when there's a new game. So we end up with this like situation here where we're like, okay, what is level? Like level equals like level default, and that's like fine. Need a deref for that. And then we can do like a lives default and stuff like that, and all of that works. So this, just to make sure that this doesn't crash our application for whatever reason. Yay, it's level 2. Yada, yada, yada. We get this. Hit one more. Come on. Yay. Okay, so we're good. As far as I can tell, we're good. So yeah, the only reason we need to make level public is to do this reset. This reset is kind of monolithic. Like I said before, starting a new game and starting a new level kind of have very similar states, similar things they need to do. So is this reset game or is this start level? You know, different things need to happen in different places. Yeah. Hey, I have an issue with Bevy. What is one supposed to do with different window sizes? How to scale, handle all asset sizes, rotations, and translations, or any of the logic of where to put that? I guess, what do you mean by different window sizes? Are you concerned about like the way your game is going to scale? If that is what you're concerned about, orthographic projection. then this is what you're looking for. You're looking for scaling mode specifically. This is wherever you render your camera. You will be able to set the scaling mode on that camera, whether it's a camera bundle or camera 2D bundle or whatever. Using this scaling mode, you will be able to define what happens when somebody resizes their window. So I guess, I have infinite Pong here. So let me run this to show you what that means. This is a different demo that I created this week. There's a video on it on the channel. But you can see how if I like squish it down really vertically small, then what we get is a very vertically squished version of it. Whereas if I make it the aspect ratio it's quote unquote supposed to be 16 by 9, then we get a 16 by 9, like everything looks square and whatnot layout. Now, the reason this is happening is because in my camera, I'm spawning a 2D bundle. And the projection I'm using is a projection mode with a specific scaling mode. And the scaling mode is fixed. So in my case, what I've done in this demo is I've taken the board size effectively for the width and the height. And I have said, whatever the window size is, use the width of my board and display that from, negative to positive. Just take the height of my board and use that to fill the window vertically. That is scaling mode fixed. So you have a bunch of options here. You can fix the vertical size, fix the horizontal size, fit one of them, do what I did with the other thing and do a very specific size. Basically, there's just a whole bunch of like options here. So pick the one that means whatever you want your game to do, basically. I always get in trouble thinking about ECAS, the way events are involved. Everything after that seems to be event-driven development. It's very event-driven development in the sense. One of the really interesting things about events is that you can kind of just read them in a whole bunch of different locations. So yeah, in a sense, it is event-driven, right? I think events are one of the big primitives that Bevy has. It's really easy to think of things like, entities as a base primitive or components as a base primitive. But really, it's kind of like entity, component, system, like event, and then like some other stuff. So events are something that I've grown to use more and more. But then also you can get yourself into like event-driven development, right? Like it makes decoupling these things really easy, right? Because like I could send a reset event, for example, or a start game event or whatever it is, and I could read that in a whole bunch of different locations, and then we wouldn't need to make lives, public or level public or, whatever. We could handle all of these inside of their own plugins as long as they listen to that reset event. But like, how do you determine when something is, ready, if that makes sense? So like for reset, it may make more sense to do like a custom schedule where we enter the reset schedule and then everybody does their reset stuff inside of the reset schedule rather than based on this event. Which would guarantee that everything happens and then everything finishes. And then it goes into another, another schedule, like the update schedule or something. With fixed window size, I could put something like 100, and it would always be halfway to the corner no matter the size. Yes, exactly. Yeah, if you were fixed and you had like a 100 pixel by 100 pixel, square, then the window size isn't going to matter. It'll just squash and stretch if you use scaling mode fixed. And from, 0 to 1 or whatever you want to term the screen space, will always be from like the left edge to the right edge, from the bottom to the top of your 100 by 100 pixel, even if it doesn't show as 100 by 100 on a user's machine. What time is it? It's 11. I think that I am starting to feel hungry. I think we have levels working. This is probably a pretty good place to stop. Levels work. So I'm going to push that up. I haven't run like cargo clippy on this code base currently. So we do have a couple of things. It does want me to do the negation there. There's a couple of things we aren't using that I intend to use later. So yeah, we'll clippy it up at some point. This complex type is actually a lint that we can get rid of. But unless somebody runs clippy on it, it's not going to matter. So where are we? We have levels. Levels work. More asteroids spawn per level. Cool. And then we don't have scoring. Meteors don't spawn at 0, 0 anymore. Although new ship spawns don't wait for clear area. So maybe we create an issue from this. And then that should make that here, which is great. And we'll close this. Meteors are randomized, but ship issue continues. Close that. So what do we need to do? We have scoring to do next week, and then maybe some UFOs. I think we might want to cap the number of asteroids, or we could let it go. I'm going to look into asteroids gameplay a little bit more and see if see how closely we want to mirror like how meteors spawn for different levels and how many spawn and things like that. I do want to be fairly faithful to the game for this, but at the same time, some things just don't matter, right? Like, we're going to have a scoring system, but does it matter how many points you get per asteroid? Not a whole lot, right? We could work on a couple of things like colliders and things like, obviously the collider for the ship is a little wonky. Actually, the scaling mode might be an interesting thing to just pop in. Window size. What is window size? Match viewport size, number of pixels that equals 1 world unit. I think, where's camera for us? Camera 2D bundle. Maybe if I grab this quickly. This is going to go here. This is just a test. So I'm going to actually get rid of this after we're done. But this is not going to be fixed. Window size. Let's make it let's make it quite a bit smaller. Oh, that's might be too small. The stream does happen every Saturday now. This is, I think, our third stream, something like that. Ah, that's why. I'm making it bigger, not smaller. Let's do 0.25. Boink. And now we have asteroids in like a much larger area. Yada yada yada, destroying some stuff. So this is maybe like too small, you know, but it is kind of nice to have like the ability to just scale this. I think the way we're doing, yeah, so the way we're doing the like movement from top to bottom, you can see here, is not how should we say, it doesn't work for the scaling mode that we've used here. So that could be something that you could change. For example, that was so simple too. I struggle with this. Yeah, I mean, like, it's hard to know to do this if you don't already know how to do this, right? Like, yeah, okay, it's simple, right? Yeah, it's a component. But like if you're new to Bevy and you don't really like know how it works yet, and you're not familiar with the ECS, and you know, all these things stack up together. So I wouldn't go too hard on yourself if you know, actually, should we let's leave it. It's fine. I wouldn't go too hard on yourself if you didn't realize that that existed. I would say, like, look at the types that you're using. If you want things to scale, it's probably related to a camera, things like that. Like reading the camera 2D bundle, for example, right? Like coming in here being like, what am I actually spawning? You go to the camera 2D bundle, there's all this stuff. You may not know what any of this does, like main texture usages. Who cares what that is? I don't know. But like if you click into a couple of these things, eventually you'll get to some documentation that tells you this is what that is, or this is what that does, or click on anything you don't know. You know, just read some of the stuff, and eventually you make it. You know. What's my solution if game simulations depend on floating point accuracy? In what way? I guess like yeah, that's my question. Like accurate in what way? Like if you need to be accurate like across multiplayer simulations, my understanding is that that is basically something that nobody does. Right? Like you want things to be relatively accurate. And like if you deploy to WASM, for example, that runtime is deterministic, but like Windows versus Linux versus Mac for multiplayer clients are not going to be. So yeah, I guess it depends. What do we have in here? We have some stuff for that, right? Maybe not in here. Oh, I'm in the wrong thing. So Bevy XPBD. Let's go here. Can we get to the docs from here? Yes, we can. And then that's not the docs. I want the docs. This is the docs. So for example, if you're using Bevy XPBD 3D, right, there should be a feature in here that's called enhanced determinism. And it's kind of funny, but yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of different ways that, you know, F32s and F64s work across different machines. And depending on how it impacts your game, you're either going to care or not care. If you really, really, really need all F32s to work the same way across machines, I believe that there are crates that implement that at a cost, if that makes sense. So you could use one of those instead and use that to drive everything. But yeah, I don't know that I have a great answer to your question. Also, there's no like concrete example, but but yeah. So we'll be back next week, I believe. I think I'm good for Saturday next week. It is Saturday morning every week. Thanks for coming. Thanks for hanging out. If you have any questions, leave them in, the comments or join the Discord or whatnot. Yeah. Thanks for having out. I will catch you in the next one.